The reason we call it hidden is because many of the things that we experience as autistic women are, in fact, things that are internal, that are not actually seen by other people. So I want to share some of those things.
Julie Bjelland is a psychotherapist specializing in the highly sensitive and neurodiverse, with a recent focus on adult-diagnosed autism in women. This is an excerpt from one of her multiple podcast episodes.
Welcome to the HSP and Neurodivergent podcast. I'm Julie Bjelland, and today we're talking about the hidden world of autistic women. So many of you have been commenting on some of the discussions we've been having in previous episodes about autism, and especially what it's looking like in women. And it's different than what it's looking like in men. And many of us have gone undiagnosed, many of the most sensitive of us. So it's been a goal of mine to take what I'm learning about myself and the autistic women that I'm doing assessments for and share that information, because I think it's going to help practitioners. I think it's going to help women identify things that they haven't understood about themselves. It's been really life-changing. We've been talking about this in my autistic women's group, and I posted about some of the patterns that I'm seeing, and the women in my autistic women's group are really resonating with that. So I want to share this more widely and also invite anyone that would like to join my autistic women's group as well. I'll put links in the show notes about how to join. So let's talk about some of the hidden world. And the reason we call it hidden is because many of the things that we experience as autistic women are, in fact, things that are internal, that are not actually seen by other people. So I want to share some of those things. One of the things is this high intelligence and diverse interests. It's almost like having a supercomputer brain. We can really process enormous amounts of information quickly, and we have an interest in a broad range of topics. So we might move from one topic to the next because we're fascinated by that topic and just absorb and research and learn everything we can about that. We have a lot of intense focus, and we can have, it's like rapid information processing. You can really dive deeply into subjects and learn more than most people about that subject quite quickly. There's also a difference between our physical energy versus our ambitions. So this is a reoccurring theme for autistic women, is that our physical energy levels often don't align with our ambitions or our mental energy. And this feeling can make you feel frustrated because there's a lot that we want to do, but our physical energy is slowing us down. The physical energy is not matching the mental energy. There is high productivity, but there's a risk of burnout. So we really can accomplish tasks very quickly and efficiently. And especially when we're capitalizing on these periods of high focus and high productivity, like when we have a lot of energy in these times. So we can get a lot done in a short amount of time, often surpassing typical expectations. However, that high productivity comes at a cost, because that intense focus and sustained mental effort can lead to burnout. And this cycle is common with autistic women, especially when we're not taking adequate breaks, we're not managing our energy levels, and really understanding the need to balance productivity with rest and recovery periods. So that's really crucial for maintaining health and well-being. I think that's why I had so much focus on creating my courses, like the HSP Toolbox, for example. That was something that taught what do we do every day to balance out that energy. And that became something that was important to me because I didn't want to have that cycle of burnout all the time. We have a need for flexible environments. So traditional structured environments, such as like typical office spaces, they're really challenging for us. Thrive more in spaces where we can control our surroundings and our schedule. allowing us to manage our energy and sensory inputs, and then work also during our peak energy times, whatever that might be. So we do have peak energy times where we'll accomplish a lot in a short period of time, but then we need to rest for quite a long time. Having that alone time becomes crucial to rest the system. If we think about a typical 8-hour workday, we might be able to accomplish most of what we need to get done in an hour or two, maybe even less, whereas somebody that is not autistic might take them the full day. But then again, what ends up happening is we take on too much. And if you're working that full 8-hour day and accomplishing more than most people are, you're also burning more fuel that way, which causes the burnout. Also, we're seeing this really hidden challenge of feeling flawed and different. This is absolutely across the board, every single autistic person. This is how I have experienced the world too until I understood autism. We feel flawed, like there's something different about us, something wrong. From the very beginning of childhood, we've received messages that how we are in the world is somehow wrong and we need to change, especially females. So this is, women have a different experience than males, and this is really showing up a lot in adult women. So there is this feeling of being like an outsider can be really isolating, and it's compounded by societal expectations that press us to conform to what other people are doing. And but that doesn't fit our natural way of being or meet our sensory needs. So a lot of times out of shame or fear of being misunderstood, we've learned to hide our challenges. I certainly did that. I had a lot of shame about how I experienced the world, how exhausted I would get, how much alone time I needed, how sensitive I felt. I would hide those things because I didn't want people to think there was something wrong with me, because that was the message I received. Thankfully, I don't do that anymore, but it was a really difficult way of being in the world. We mask a lot of our challenges. Autistic women tend to often tell me that they pass in the world, meaning that you can't tell that they're autistic. But we have to really relook at this, because traditionally in the past, the way we were looking at autism was a lot based on external things that you could see. But for women, we've learned how to cover up those things so that other people couldn't see them. You know, I was the type of person that always had a smile on my face, but that wasn't necessarily mirroring what I felt on the inside when I was growing up and in teenage years, college years, things like that. People knew me as friendly, smiling, but that wasn't matching what I felt on the inside, because that's what I was taught to do. I was taught to smile, make other people comfortable, conform to their needs instead of meet my own needs. So obviously this kind of concealment of who we really are in the world, it diminishes our sense of self-worth. So for autistic women who haven't kind of worked through some of this stuff, really feel that. They walk around in the world thinking that something's wrong with them, and they hide those challenges. And it's sad. It really is sad that we've had to do that. And it's created a lot of problems in our lives and in our relationships. And we really need to foster a greater understanding and acceptance of this experience that we have in the world, and understand that these are differences. These are not flaws. And we really need to understand these are just differences. Also, I want to talk a little bit about emotional expression, sensory overload, and misunderstandings. So emotional and sensory regulation, often it presents significant challenges for us. There are feelings of shame about meltdowns and anger bursts. This is a really common thing. Something I used to feel, and every single autistic woman I've done assessments for has felt this enormous shame for meltdowns and anger bursts. And really what that is that overactivation of the fight, flight, freeze system. And I just wrote about that, overactivation of the amygdala, in an article. I'm going to link that in the show notes too if you want to learn more about that. So what ends up happening is that our sensory sensitivities also intensify all of our experiences and our responses and reactions. And this can lead to misunderstandings in our relationships, having this overactive fight-freeze response. And it really helps to understand that our neurological makeup is just different, and that we can start to have self-compassion for ourselves in these experiences rather than being hard on ourselves about it. It does lead to a lot of misunderstandings. A lot of autistic women have struggled in their relationships because of this. And it makes sense. If we're not understanding ourselves, other people are not going to understand us. I used to have a lot of shame too about that, when I've thought, how could I possibly be having these meltdowns? What's wrong with me? Was that constant question. What's wrong with me? And that is a very heavy weight to carry around in the world, thinking that there's something wrong with you. Imagine that. I mean, it seeps into absolutely every single part of your life. It is definitely a big hidden challenge. Also, we have different communication and social preferences, and we really like clear, direct, and honest communication. That is preferred over small talk, ambiguous expressions. That can often be confusing for us when things are not clear. We really value one or two people that we feel connected to on a deeper level rather than large groups. And what's really been interesting to see is that many of us end up taking on leadership roles if we are sort of forced to be in particular types of groups, whether it be at work or in other situations. Because in a leadership role, I've said this for years, that I'd rather be leading a group than be inside of a group. We'd like to be able to structure things and know what's ahead of us. And by being a group leader, that's something that we can do. It's more structured for us. Also, our homes are a sanctuary. This is something I used to be so hard on myself about for a long time, was how much I disliked hosting social gatherings at my home.
Thanks for listening. See the Creative Mind post for this podcast episode with links to resources and other material.